So in regards of the sanctions, did it get better after the nuclear deal, and so it got worse again now? And what do you think will happen in the near future?
Yes, actually, I just wanted to make a quick remark. I'm really pleased to actually have a lot of friends from Iran. They do have sanctions there, unfortunately. They're very vulnerable to technical difficulty in this entire delivery system. They really like to engage. So they've been, so one of the hats that I wear is actually program committee member of the Middle East Network Operations Group. And we have a couple of Iranian friends actually who are part of that group. They've been pushing very hard to have a Middle East Network Operators Group meeting in Tehran. Unfortunately, due to the political tension between the Arabs and the Persians, it's been impossible really. But yeah, they have a really vibrant community, and they attend ICANN meetings on a regular basis. And they do all of these regional events, of course, depending on where it happens. So we sometimes try to actually choose locations that are satisfactory to all the parties involved. So yeah, a big applause to everyone. Who wants to go next? Yeah, okay, so can we have him first? Go ahead, Jason.
Wait, do you want to put it up? No. You went all out. No, I don't think they have one.
You need a, yeah, okay, I can figure that out. You want this?
No, this will that works better. Go ahead and start. You have a presentation, so I'll make comments on it.
Okay, so this was my presentation for my Human Rights Law and Politics course. So this was my research question: to what extent human rights are considered in the making of legislative documents about data protection and privacy in Turkey. So recently, in 2016 March, Turkey has enacted its data protection law, and Turkey made this law according to the, let me write it because there are many concepts, 95 directive of EU, data protection directive. However, EU was in the process of changing its regulations. So in 2016, they created this new regulation called GDPR.
from 1998, so if
Yeah.
anyone, yes, that's why we have this big difference.
Yeah. So I've spoken to several people, for some parliament members from Turkey, some lawyers in Turkey, and some advisories to parliament members in European Parliament. It seems to be motivations of the AK Party AKP government seems to be the trade center that was going to be built in Istanbul. So if you want to build a trade center, you need to have very comprehensive data protection laws. Obviously Turkey's trade is mostly with Europe. EU is the biggest importer from Turkey. So this was the motive. However, as I mentioned, the Turkish lawyers also think that the 95, its creation according to the 95 document is a problem. However, recently I have spoken to this officer from the Ministry of European Union in Turkey. He worked in the process of making this law, and data protection law in Turkey. So I asked him, why did you create the law in a very old, according to a very old document? And he said that they were in this process for a very long time, the creation of that document since 2004. So they didn't want to change it, and they told me that they adapted to the new situations.
Also, one of the other benefits of using an older law is that the European Union has a lot of case studies on this law. So when you're enacting this new law in Turkey, you can look at all these case studies from Europe, and you have like a really robust framework to follow. As GDPR, it's not even enacted yet, not till March of next year, and frankly, there's a lot of issues with GDPR, and a lot of people question how well it's actually going to work.
Yeah. As I said, I've spoken to many people, and Gönenç Gürkaynak, the lawyer of Twitter in Turkey, and Osman Coşkun, former parliament member, they both told me that there are problems with specifically two articles in law. First is Article 5, and it's about the explicit consent of the person, and whether the judiciaries need to, or anyone basically that has the government needs the consent of the person to reach their personal data or not. So basically this article says that there is no need for the explicit consent of the person if there is special issues such as security problems, terrorism, etc. So I asked the advisory Ralph Bernard, the German advisory in the EU Parliament. He said that the Article 6 and 9 of GDPR is actually the same in the Turkish law, so they don't differ that much. And in Article 23 it says that data subjects' rights can be restricted, but only under specific conditions. But still, I think both in Turkish law and EU, the GDPR, this is problematic because it's very vague under what specific conditions. And so this also brings up the debate of public interest or individual rights. You remember that Hillary Clinton's emails was revealed during presidential elections. So I don't know if you'd like to discuss it. Should the public interest be favored or individual rights be favored? Okay. Okay.
Super.
Oh, all right.
situation, of course, but a good example of public interest versus individual rights were when last year a public official, a high-ranking government official who is also the president's in his family, when his emails leaked, and it was the contents of the emails were it was the public's business. I mean, it was something that they should know, but we got the internet shut down. So like for one person's privacy rights, and even that privacy right is debatable because he's also a public figure, the right to access, right to information, right to expression of millions of people were blocked for, I don't remember how long, but at least a few days, like Dropbox, GitHub, Google Drive, and many other things were banned, and businesses hurt, of course, like economic consequences as well. So I don't know if we can say it's always the public interest or always the individual right, but there are a lot of cases, especially here, that depending on who the individual is, the rights of millions are not a concern.
Maybe I could point it out that the GDPR is very comprehensive, and it's not only it does not only interfere in EU, but also interferes with if some EU nationals' data is in US, then GDPR also includes it in itself. So anything happening in US, for example, Google is also responsible to the GDPR. So this one is much more problematic. This is Article 19 describing Data Protection Authority. So the Data Protection Authority is selected by the Ministry and the Parliament, which shows many problems to independency, because this obviously this must be an independent authority, and also under EU law, data protection authorities, it is stated that they need to be independent. There are other debates, but I would like to state that the EU, Ralph told me that in the future European Data Protection Board can take binding decisions that have to be respected by individual data protection authorities. So they tell that they may not recognize the way that Turkish Data Protection Authority is created, and they may need to take more steps to make it more independent. Yeah, that's it on my part.
Along with this, I kind of went into a lot of so this law was enacted last April in 2016, and as promised with that, 1 year later, secondary regulations were also supposed to be passed, which would have been in April of this year, but those still have not actually come from the Data Protection Authority, and because of this, a lot of companies are currently kind of in limbo. They don't really know exactly how should we start, or when should we start complying with this new data protection regulations when we don't even know what's going to come out in a few months. So a lot of this puts a lot of pressure on businesses, and the Data Protection Authority for the past 6 months has been going to CEOs around the country to see how they can make it more easy for these companies to comply with this law, when some of the articles are slightly restricting, when they could still uphold these privacy rights to these people and not be as restrictive to the companies. Like they have to have a processing inventory list, which can be really hard to create. And the question is does this actually protect users' privacy? Which is one beneficial thing of GDPR, is it has this idea of like privacy by design. So it's more about, instead of just at the front level, how can we protect privacy? It's about how can we create a whole system in which privacy is just innate in it. It's a part of the design, which can be a lot more beneficial. That's all I want to add right now.
Okay, any questions? Nothing interesting?
So if you don't ask them a question, you won't leave on time.
people now are arguing about having this privacy in big companies. Like I can recall the incident when Apple refused to give information to the FBI when they asked for information from the terrorist. I don't know what his name was. But what do you think in this case would be your reaction to that if one of the authorities comes to you asking you about someone's information, of course related and telling you that he is a terrorist and many people are going to die, like thousands of people are going to die. So would you give them the information they need? Would you reveal someone's information if he's in your custody or you have like his personal details?
Well, I think one of the issues though with this example though is that it's not that the company exactly has this this information on this person. It's in the Apple case. It's this person has this iPhone and it's their property. And personally, if you look at the way I like to look at the way we use the internet and the way we use these tools is that my laptop is a tool, and in using a tool, like when a worker uses a shovel, it's an extension of my body, and it's in a way a part of me. So for some government to come and invade my computer, like to me that feels like an invasion of myself, because this is, to me, it's a part of me, it's an extension of me. I use it, like when my mind has thoughts, I write it down on my word processor, and it becomes a part of you. So I really think that in these cases, when we think of it, that it really becomes this human right. So although when you say thousands of people will die, I mean, you can't predict the future, and I don't know if exactly using these examples really benefit us, because there is no way of really knowing that. And I think that that can really have this like cascading effect where there's backdoors everywhere and every part of me is being invaded by my government. So that's my
In U.S. borders, I guess if they would like to check when your devices, if they're closed, and if you put a password there, you have a right to. I don't want to type my password. That's my password, and I won't. That is personal.
Yeah, except of course they have the power in the situation where if you don't type your password, you're not coming in the country. So
Yeah,
you have to weigh your options at that point.
Actually, that is weird. Is it becoming like a part of you and you're not allowing anyone to touch some part? So what if it is not like a part of you? What if it is something else? Like if this guy comes to you and you have the information of this guy. People are talking about, I don't know, maybe bringing evidences to the company that might be like specific courts that gives you evidence that this guy has committed this crime or that crime, based on which you can give out the information of this one. Do you think?
And I suppose in the pragmatic answer, we have a court system set up where you apply for warrants and you go through that process. And if the judge says, yes, you have the right to do this, then they have the right to do it.
When it comes to terror attacks, when it comes to terrorist attacks and how that information can share people, my favorite example is in the Paris and Brussels attacks. The terrorists shared information through regular text messages, and the law enforcement missed this. It was completely unencrypted, and it was under their nose. And the attacks still happened. So when governments like the US or the UK or our governments in our region says we need less encryption and we need to surveil everyone's communication, personally, I don't think we should buy into that, because first of all, it's a violation of our rights. I mean, millions of people's rights, but putting that aside, they don't have the capacity to analyze that type of information anyway. That amount of big data. I mean, if you couldn't catch these people when they were just calling each other, get regular calls and sending each other text messages, I mean, they need to prove their point that they can actually, this will improve the situation and stop millions of people or thousands of people of dying by surveilling all of our personal communications. So it's, apart from the fact that if it's violating our rights or not, it's not efficient as well. for them to watch everything.
Good point. Yes.
As we know very well, European Union doesn't allow trade with other countries which do not have enough citizen protection laws, and because they are a union, because they are a union of many countries, they have the power to force big companies like American companies, I mean Google, Facebook, etc. They have enough power to force them, and so they have such agreements as safe harbor agreements, etc. But for Turkey, will this work in the same way? I mean, when Turkey tries to force Google or Facebook on the basis of these laws, like EU, we want you to do this, and otherwise I will stop trade with you, etc. What will be your opinions on this? Thank you.
On Turkish companies in other countries, or about the Turk?
In two ways, our data is going abroad, or
I think
if it's coming to Turkey, it's okay. But if our data is going abroad,
yeah, I think it applies to Turkey as well, because Turkey is, I mean, maybe this is a personal opinion, but Turkey is dependent on EU for its trades. Maybe it may move its trade volume a bit to some towards some other countries. But if the majority of the trade is done with EU, then Turkey has to compromise to what the EU wants. And the companies, actually, I think it's the other way around for the companies. If the companies wouldn't say to the Turkish government that we need this data protection measures, Turkey as a government, as a state, would say that you need to in accordance with these measures of ours to be able to do what you're doing, do your job in our country. I don't know if it's, but it's a personal perspective, I think. Any other questions?
Any more questions? No more questions. Thank you. Any further presentations? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just a second, please. Actually, it's urgent. So if we could,
Should I leave this here?
yeah, I'll take it. It's fine. It's not the trouble with each other.
Hello, my name is Yunan. I'm going to present. My presentation is based on an article published in the spring in Jacobin magazine. It's under the same title, Capitalism versus Privacy. And I hope this is like quite a long joke, so you start reading from here. Like this.
should I give the other one?
So you start reading from here. And I'm gonna by Scott McNeely. He said that in 1999. He was by then the CEO of Sun's Microsystem. He said, "You have zero privacy now, get over it." You know the second guy, he's Eric Schmidt, CEO of Google. He says, if you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. The third one, George Orwell, the famous writer. If you want to keep a secret, you must also hide it from yourself. Okay, capitalism, by definition, by basic definition, it's an economic system found on the idea of private sphere and has always been the antidote of authoritarianism. And the differences between the two, as I will show, has been always exaggerated, because while it's supposedly based on privacy, as you will see, privacy is no longer part of the capitalist system. On the contrary, it's assumed to protect individual privacy. This is a quote by Russian-American writer Ayn Rand. She says, "Civilization is the progress toward a society of privacy. Savage's whole existence is public, ruled by the laws of the tribe." However, today privacy is disappearing in advanced capital democracies led mainly by international corporations. In 1977 in the US, right-wing legal jurist Richard Posner put forward his economic theory of privacy. He said that individual privacy hinders the free flow of information, which interrupting that markets need to be efficient. So here, the first contradiction between what's supposed to be the basic notion of capitalism privacy and the advance of the system. Google chief economist Hal Varian says that any resistance to the loss of privacy will dissipate because the advantages in terms of convenience, safety, and services will be so great. He said that 3 years ago. Okay. Privacy in digital age. We're all familiar with informational capitalism, digital capitalism, and surveillance capitalism. Some describe it as the new oil because it's fueling many economies, as Fahad explained in his presentation. It was Edward Snowden's mass leak of NSA files in 2013 that revealed the active role of corporations play in state surveillance. And I mentioned this incident in particular because I will mention one of the solutions that were put to counter it right the next day after, actually it was on 28 March. US Congress approved a legislation to repeal an Obama-era law that demanded ISPs have permission to share personal information, including location. Ironically, this bill was passed days before Trump was elected. It was supposed to become effective later this year. So on 28 March, the Congress voted to repeal this legislation. And this repeal was backed by major providers such as Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast. Okay, this is another joke. This is an NSA guy at the end. Okay, data and digital advertising. According to IBM, we generate some 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day. About 90% of all data in the world were created only in the past 2 years. In the third quarter of 2016, a total of $17.6 billion was spent on digital advertising. That's a 20% increase from 2015. Facebook and Google set 85 cents of every dollar spent on digital advertising in the first quarter of 2016, which shows you the big data mindset. It means that solving a human problem only requires collecting enough information. And what's so serious about it is that, for example, one piece of information might not seem a big problem, but once you collect all these pieces of information, you have these corporations having an image of who you are, having your own identity. So knowledge by itself may mean power, but it's how they use these data. So information itself is domination. So it's how they use these data to push things out of your control. Center for Responsive Politics recently found that the 5 biggest tech firms, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft, spent $49 million on lobbying in alone. Tech CEOs today celebrate the most measured age in history, equating gathering in with the Enlightenment ideal of knowledge discovery. Orwellian approach to advertising. Have you ever heard of the term Big Brother? George Orwell famously in 1984 to describe the surveillance state. So now with corporations, what's so serious about it, it's now called, they coined a different term, the best friend. Because we have been accustomed to, we have not only, we have been accustomed to collect information about it, and we feel comfortable about it. We love it when Google remembers our birthdays, or when it recommends movies or things we like based, for example, on one single search sometimes. So we're very comfortable with it. A set of best friends. Customer-focused approach of companies masks their profit motive, and also in the main article in Jacobin, the writer argues because of the contradiction between privacy and capitalism, and how it's now contradicting after it being emerged of convenience. Now it's no longer for them to be convenient together. It says that in a world without privacy, there will be conformity. And this is the total opposite of what individualism, which capitalism advocates for. It's negating capitalism from the, I'm done, from the exact same rights it's currently advocating through data collection. And this is it. Thank you.
Thank you, that was interesting. Yes, please.
If you have
Sure, sure.
my instructor when I was studying internet law told us once that if you are not paying for a product, you are the product. So we all of us use Google Maps or other applications which are great, by the way, and we don't pay for it. And this is great again. So it's very easy to
everybody. I'm Alisan. This is probably the first time for some of you to ever hear my voice, so I feel like I should introduce myself again. As I said, I'm Alisan, and once I was studying at this university, by the way, but I was studying chemical engineering, and then I dropped it out, and I transferred to Boğaziçi University to study political science and international relations, and last June I graduated from there. And now I'll be going to Sweden, Uppsala University to have my master's program about digital media and society. Since my background is about politics and my future interest will be media, and this is an internet event, I would like to I wanted to put some chose a specific topic which meets in between of three in all of three. So my topic will be about chasing the facts, like the fact-checking organizations. This is actually my first my motivation was this book. This book was prepared by Lucas Grace. He's an assistant professor in the University of Wisconsin Medicine and School of Journalism and mass communication. This book is actually you can interpret it as an intersection point between academia and journalism, and these people from the academia, they also try to prepare annual reports about regional fact-checking organizations. For example, they did one about Europe for 2016, and it was called Digital News Project, and it's a very interesting work. I should recommend you to look it up. And so why I chose to go through with this topic. I believe that in recent times, with the introduction and with the enhancement of the social media and the internet media, I believe there are very interesting stuff going on recently. One of them is the American elections of 2016. We all heard the speeches of Trump and everything. He's very confident and sure speeches. All we most of the people felt he's what he say must be true or whatever. And the second term, which is the post-truth, which is related to the first one, the one about Trump, the Oxford Dictionary has chosen the word post-truth as the word of the year of 2016. And it basically means, probably most of you already know that, but I will just go through it again. It basically means in determining the behaviors and the actions, people are started to choose their personal beliefs and personal leaders, people like Trump, more effective than their actual objective beliefs. Sorry, objective facts, I should say. But against all of these, there are still there's a spread of fact-checking, which I will mention about more through the media and civil society. Basically, most of the initiatives about fact-checking websites, they're both funded and initiated by civil society organizations. So I think fact-checking and civil society should be even in the first place, they should be examined in together. And so I also wanted to say that most of the media outlets like Washington Post or New York Times, they have their fact-checking sections with themselves. So I think this is a growing phenomena which is even recognized by the common and very big media outlets. So I'd like to mention some of the important fact-checking websites. The first one, politifact.com, which is probably among the first, and their contributor, their establisher, is a guy who is called Bill Adair, and he's their slogan is very basic. They say that sorting out the truth in politics. So they focusing on politics, and in the 2016 elections, they were very effective in with their truth-o-meter stuff, whether Trump, any other candidates, whether it is Trump or whatever, they try to control and they try to like check whether the candidate is saying the truth or not. And the guy who established this platform, he won a Pulitzer Prize with this project, and the guy, like Bill Adair is now in Duke University as a professor of public policy and practice of journalism. And the African Check, it's also a very, very powerful, civil society-based fact-checking operation, and it operates in most of the African countries, but it is actually, as far as I know, it's actually South African-based, and it gets funded from many different types of organizations, including what was the name of the Millennium Trust and the Open Society Foundations. And another one, which is factcheck.org, it's a civil society project from Annenberg Public Policy Center, and this is one of the leading ones in the field. And lastly, the International Fact-Checking Network that is introduced by Pointer. And Pointer is a journalism brand, and you probably know their work. They were successful in that, and they established a network that connects all of the most of the fact-checking platforms in the world, from Brazil to Turkey, from I don't know, Scandinavia to other places of the world. And yeah, so now I think I should show you a quote from Bill Adair. He says for you to understand what an ideal fact-checker should be, should act, So he says, you'll see a posting on Facebook sometimes, anybody know the name of a good conservative fact-checker? He says, the truth is, there is no such thing as either a conservative fact-checker or a liberal fact-checker. So it basically means that a fact-checker should not be, an established set of mind person who goes through only some certain facts and some certain hoping to obtain some certain results. I mean, that person should be open. Of course, he may have a set of mind, and he may have beliefs, of course, but he should be open to every claim and allegation, and should go through all of them in a equal manner. So, as I said, Pointer established a network, and you can also see their code of principles, and they established a very rigid terms of what a fact checker should be like, and for example, he or she should be committed a lot of stuff, for example, to non-partisanship and fairness, to transparency of sources, to transparency of funding and organization, and the transparency of methodology. They should be committed all of these, and also to open and honest corrections. So, as we are living in a fast spread of the internet connections and everything, I should say fact-check the internet, and the environment of internet is one of the very, very important contributors of the fact-checking environment. What did the internet make it for an average fact checker? First, it made easier for fact checkers to access to big data through Google, and there are if you write Google Needs Lab and go through that website, you can see that Google actually makes a lot of there are certain sections, and you should if you write some certain codes, you can search in a very easy way than for example, that there are some codes and everything, so you can do your research in Google in a very easy way. You can see all of them in Google Needs Lab, and also governmental statistics are very important in fact checker in the fact checkers observation, because fact checkers love numbers and everything. So governmental statistics are very important in their what they find in the internet. They are very important. Also, personalized devices and the internet allow people to reach the facts instantly. This is, for example, in the elections of 2016, they were you know tartışmak ne demek? Discussing about the they were discussing about the what whether like the moderators should be fact checkers or not. So like since they have all personalized devices, they can do their fact checking operations in a very easy way. And also like the chance of fast and wide spreading of the news through social media. This can also affect the fact checker's operation in a very easy way. So this is a map that is obtained from Reporters Lab. Reporters Lab is an initiation of the Duke University, and it shows the fact checker websites throughout the world. Now, since our region is the Middle East, and I focused on the Middle East, but I know that like Pakistan and Afghanistan are not covered in this map, but they don't have any fact checking websites, just like most of the Middle Eastern countries. I mean, I also wanted to show this map to like there is this need of more initiatives regarding the fact checking websites in the field, because like all of these websites are operating on in a political manner, and so they create a kind of intimidation regarding the political actors. So there are two websites in Turkey regarding their fact-checking operations. One of them is Teyit, which means confirmation, and the other one is Doğruluk Payı, in which I worked for like close to a year as a voluntary contributor. So I'd like to mention about Doğruluk Payı in a bit. There are like, since there are like a lot of like 5 of them, so they did not try to make them like separate checks, and they just wrote 5, because if they wrote, like put 5 checks, it would be probably crowd for. Okay, so those are those are fact check websites too. Yeah. So this is the basic interface of Doğruluk Payı. This Doğruluk Payı means the extent of truth in Turkish. So they basically, the idea in here is that they take the statements of political actors, whether they are like from the government or from the opposition, and they analyze the website, the statements according to their sources and according to their context and everything. So this like, how can I? Bu lazer şey nasıl yapılıyor? Şu mu? Bu da değil. The laser thing. Okay, okay. Oh, okay, thanks. Thank you. So as you can see, that there are like different sections in this website, and this means political actors. This means something called like this is not a Turkish word, by the way. This is just like something that they made up, and they in this section they like they yeah they like do. For example, in every election process, the government do some promises. So they check it whether the government did what they promised or not. In this section, here is the statistics, and here is the the about section of the website. So they say that up to now there are like 799 statements are analyzed, and 28% of them has the extent of true. Like in a way, they are true or not. And there are the actors here. And there are some of the comments. It's kind of a web news website, but still it operates as a fact checker website, and it tries to control the statements of the political actors. So now I'd like to.
Do they deny or accept themselves, or?
No, they just they put the actual they put the quantitative statistic from the what they found from the Google or from the governmental statistics or whatever, and they applied the data to the statement of the actor. I will give you example in a minute, okay? So I will, try. I will take two statements from Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. He's the head of the main opposition party in Turkey, Republican People's Party. So I will take two of his statements to show how they qualitatively and quantitatively analyze a fact checker analyze a statement. So I should look at something, by the way. Yeah. So this is what like PolitiFact and Doğruluk Bey call truth-o-meter. So it shows like this means wrong. This means like away from being true, whatever. And this means like in the middle. This means close to true, and this means like totally true. So they are the colors, as you can see. You can understand from the colors. And in here he says like in the years between 1946 and 2002, in 43 years, the annual average growth of Turkey is 5.1. And he picks another date interval and says between 2003 and 2014, the annual growth is 4.7. So he basically tries to show that like in the current government's era, the growth rate has been decreased. So this, this actually. First, I should mention how we analyze the data. So this statement, sorry, we analyze the statement in two ways. Its correctness according to it's the truth in itself and the truth by its context. So this is a true statement regarding its like sources, but this may not be true as we will see with, like right now regarding its context. So here you can see that for example, if a normal fact checker should like take the data, the resources, and should show it in the news whether like is it true or not, to show it whether is it true or not. So the person, I didn't analyze this one. There is some other person like whose name is Koray Kaplıca. So he took the table from probably the 2x website. 2x is like Turkish statistical agency. From there he took the data and showed all the growth rates of Turkey ranged accordingly in the years. So so there are like, this is a little technical information, but I should say that like there are some basis years that a country in a country is like, if you'd like to measure a country's growth rate, you should pick some basic years. Like the basic year of Turkey, this is again a bit detailed, but 1948, 1968, which is here, and 1998, again here. So there are no information here because they are the basis years. If you'd like 2 minutes, okay. Anyway, so this is partly true because although this statement is true by itself, the political actor who said this took the real year interval from 1946, which is right after the World War II. And the growth rate of the countries are like more than 3 or 20 or 30%. Like for example, Turkey's growth rate is 33% in that year. So another statement. This is a bit provocative, but I've chosen this deliberately. So he says the only country with a developed democracy is Turkey. The only Islamic country with a developed democracy is Turkey, and there are no other there is no republican system in the other Islamic countries. So why this? I put it down because I'd like to show that a fact checker should also analyze statements that are not like numerical, that are qualitative. So here, the person who analyzed this statement, he or she probably took some table from the Freedom House Freedom House rating, and he, as you can see, and by the way, Freedom House and ranges the countries according to their democracy level, and 1 is the best according to them, and 7 is the worst. So as you can see, there are many other countries that probably. So you need to define here what is the democracy, what's the democratic country, what's the Republican country, what is that Islamic country, how you should choose an Islamic country according to its constitution or according to its population. So you should state all of these details in your news, and then you should define all of these terms, and then you should clearly write your analysis. So as I said, there are Tunisia, Albania, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, Bosnia Herzegovina, and Malaysia. They're all better than Turkey in terms of Freedom House democratic understanding. So obviously all of these countries except Malaysia have Republican way of ruling. So, and lastly, the problems and issues in the fact-checking world. Of course, there are problems. For example, this question of whose facts. There may be some kind of some certain facts. If you give voice to some certain facts more than the other ones, then the operation of fact-checking should maybe in the control of some manipulative people. So the key here is non-partisanship. If a fact-checker person should be transparent and open, then it's going to be the problem will be solved. But still, we can see that there are some manipulative websites that are acting as a fact-checker website. Also, the increasing control of the authorities over such initiatives also makes the issue a bit hard, because for example, the place that I work, they had an initiative called Turkey and Facts, which was an English website, and they're still trying to do fact-checking operations in English. But since they operated in English and the language is open to everyone in the world, so some internet trolls or the general fear of the country's atmosphere, we wanted to close it down. And lastly, the over-factuality carries the risk of degrading the important facts. What I mean is that if some people who want to believe some other stuff, some other things, although you can give as many facts as you can, and you should, but those people would not believe what you try to say, but they just believe what they want to believe. So that may be that this effect may cause, and it may strengthen the bad effects of the post-truth thing. So fact-checking this also should be counted as a dangerous thing. I'd like to finish a famous depressing quote from Mark Twain. He says, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. So in today's world, whether the internet connects everything and everyone, and but still, as we can see there, the social media, the websites, the news outlets, they are very open to manipulation. They are very open to fake news, but still, with the initiatives of civil society and with the right initiatives of media and fact-checking, people, especially in our region, people may have a chance to find truth in themselves. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
So I'm wondering if so with fact checking and the amount of effort that would have to go into all this amount of fact checking and the problems that come with it, is that the right way to take care of this fake news problem and politicians saying crazy things, or should we be looking at more like the last presentation about looking at this
Well, I think that's totally logical things to say, and I believe like what she introduces and what I introduce, they're not alternatives. They're like, for example, the fact checking is something that you can do with your own, limited opportunities, or like your phone or whatever. The changing of the old understanding of like capitalistic, the holistic idea of like gaining money and like creating fake news and whatever. This is something that relates to the social, like the whole social understanding, the change and everything. So I think that's like kind of long process. I hope that what you say and what she introduces becomes for real. But like in the short run, if you'd like to prevent such fake news, you should intimidate the ones who produce it, and fact checking is one of the good solutions for it, I say. You're welcome.
My question is actually like very resembles to yours. I would like to authorize these on a political side, and sometimes even the state institutions may lie, may manipulate the facts. This is the real problem, I guess. And what we are talking since 5 days, actually, about privacy, accuracy, access to the internet, or right to be forgotten, all of these are all related with the real world. We are living in it, and the online world is what we see in the online world is only a mirror of the real world, and we just see the percussions of the real world, I guess. I don't know what my question is. I just wanted to.
As I said, you're absolutely right about your concern, because even like during the process of analysis, we are trying to find some, trustful source, and we generally work with like TÜİK's analysis. TÜİK is, as I said, Turkish statistical agency, and like most of the records in TÜİK, they are very hard to find, or they are like they are not examined at all. So there are also like some private companies who do research about certain stuff like refugee crisis, or like the child marriage, or something like all those fragile stuff in the society. They do research, but still, what is actually like what is the truth? Because like you cannot trust all the methodology of all these research centers, or you cannot trust how they are shown in a graph or in a like chart or whatever, because it is very easy to manipulate people through charts or through graphs, because like the methodology, and most of the people don't know how they are created, so they just believe what they see and when they think like, if it's like the chart shows like this, so I should believe in that. So they think like this, but the chart may be manipulated in a very like crucial manner. So this is also something that we suffer from. So that's why the fact checkers and like the normal, like the non-fact checkers, I should say, these people should be interactive with each other, and they always try to there needs to be like some kind of a pool of resources, pool of like data and everything, in which we can create, obtain or grasp our findings and our like resources most probably. But as you said, some of the things are just not trustful. So in that point, we just don't fact check that statement. Another question? Yeah.
Checking facts of news in war zones. For example, I worked for a couple of months on the Syrian news desk, and I remember, for example, you would see Sana, which is the Syrian news agency, and Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. One is pro-regime, one is anti-regime. They would be reporting on the same event, and you'd see completely opposite numbers, completely opposite facts, supposedly. So I think the challenge before fact checker is, for war zones at least, is news credibility at spaces. I also have another comment on this quote. There's an Italian software engineer who says that the amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than that needed to produce it. So it's almost the same.
Yeah. Thank you. So
Let's stop there. Thank you very much. So let's hand over certificates. No, you come with me. You're the local host. Come on. So we're done. 5 days have passed. Thank you. First of all, I'd really like to thank our local host, UTR. I think we all witnessed a lot of generosity, whether the city tour, or even the dinner, or even all the other facilities that they provided us with before and during the stay. I've been honored to actually be working with them closely. We did a lot of logistics.
not me
training.
actually, my colleagues. They did all the
So I'm
job.
talking Nick TR here in general and all this stuff. So I think everybody had a contribution. So a big clap to our local host. So we'll distribute the certificates first. And,
Alphabetically or
say that again?
alphabetically?
No, so I think
Randomly.
yeah,
Alphabetically. Because Allah is the first.
unfortunately. Then we'll take a really like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe quick go through the class just to like seek some feedback from you really quick, and then we'll break for coffee because our generous local host insisted that we have a coffee break before we head out. Just to remind you that we'll be presenting, well, I mean, let's distribute this first and then I'll talk. So Sugand, you go first.
I think you have to come to
No, well, we'll ask Kader to handle the certificate. No, go ahead, go ahead.
Let's do like one me on you.
No,
It's in the corridor, like this one.
Please,
Just
go ahead.
in the middle would be very good.
So you're taking pictures?
Yes, to have the logo with the whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
So we can put it in the middle.
Okay.
So
We can carry
no,
it.
not this one, not this one. The one in the corridor.
Okay, you get that.
Do you need some help?
No, we're fine.
Just be ready for the certificate. Okay.
You'll get it, don't worry.
Just grab it.
You look great.
We all tired. Looks sleepy was there. Much better.
And then maybe we'll off the projector. Where is the remote control? Okay. And maybe tidy this up a little bit. We have an iPhone here that could actually go up with the pictures.
Slogan, Borbani. You just, no.
So the
That's
whole,
a great idea, but like Bob said last year, it wasn't working groups, but we went into small teams and like role playing and defending different sides. And although with maybe 1/3 of the people it worked, a lot of people didn't feel comfortable enough to do actual work because they didn't think they knew it enough. So that maybe that's why it may not work. I don't know what
You
Bob
need to
thinks.
be prepared in the previous emails that you spammed us a week before.
Maybe it was prepared
yeah,
early on.
so this whole concept of role play, I mean, I took the idea from the European Summer School on Internet Governance. But frankly speaking, I mean, different geographies have different levels of understanding of Internet governance. So like at that school, it was really competitive. I mean, people were really extreme. So they just came to kind of get a broader picture and kind of bring together everything into one perspective. Here it's completely different. I mean, overall in the region, I'm saying, I'm not talking about this group. Overall in the region, awareness on Internet governance is extremely low. And even when participants come to attend the school, they just feel sometimes lost. I mean, we did give some homework before the school. So how many people watched the video, even partially? See? So I mean, even partially, not many people did that. And even if we talk about the book, who read the book? So I mean, even when we did give the homework like a couple of weeks earlier, we just realized that not everybody was able to move ahead with it. So I mean, we felt that, yeah, I mean, as Sue said, I mean, 1/3 of the people worked, the rest felt that they were completely lost, and then we just decided to switch back to the old format of 2015. Yes, Nadia.
First of all, thank you to IPM, TR, and MTU, and especially Fatma and Olga and who really helped us. Content was really good. The resource persons were really good, obviously one of the best ones. But obviously you already said that you tried to pick up the best ones and more other ones. So you can try next time more to have those combinations of textbooks. But one thing which you just mentioned regarding awareness, I don't know any other one is following this role play thing, but we can have this thing like I'm from law background, so we have this mood competition sort of thing. Do you know that?
Please elaborate on that.
Mood competition is something you give a scenario to the participants, and they maybe you follow it for a role playing to some extent, but it's like a case hearing sometimes. But in technical side, we not exactly do the case hearing thing, but someone who is defending it, someone who is doing it. But not during these trainings. You can do it, but as a awareness thing, I can make it at least me. I can do it in these and countries to have this competition. So where undergrad and graduate students can come, a team of universities can come, and they can be very well, they can know about this. And so ICRC, International Red Cross Committee, is doing that for international humanitarian law and international criminal law. So people are doing this for the specific area. So we can do it for, like these platforms can do it for internet governance thing.
Yes, actually on that point, I mean, again, this goes back to the role play, because in the role play it has two components. First of all, we ask participants to brainstorm. Well, actually 3 components. Brainstorm, then compile everything together, and we ask them finally to actually discuss with each other, to convince each other that my rationale is correct, your rationale is incorrect. But again, I mean, we just decided that this year we might change the format. But, I mean, thank you for the
This
feedback.
could be good with this tool, but that competition could be annual competition sort of thing. This
Right.
has a free activities at
Okay.
home, and they are submitting something, and then this maybe.
So maybe next year if we decide to move in that path, I mean, I'll probably touch base with you and you can maybe help us with that. Perfect, thank
We
you.
can separately work on this exactly competition apart from schools. Apart from schools.
So do you think we can start something maybe after the school?
Yes.
So do you think you can start a discussion maybe on the mailing list and just kind of
Yes.
expand on it so that participants can
But I
understand
have
it?
to just check that there we discuss about some legal issues. So here we have a lot of issues.
Right.
We can specify.
Yeah, I mean, if you can like develop something and share it on the mailing list for participants to kind of engage in, I mean, we really appreciate it. Thank you. So we actually had a question there, and I'll get back to you. Yes.
So thank you everyone who contributed to the success of this edition. Mainly I can and Nancy and you and Fatma, and I'm really glad to know all of you here. My
In fact, you can have discussions wherever you want. You want to have it on the internal 2017 mailing list, you can do that. You can do that on the alumni mailing list, and you can also do it on the MEAC ICANN mailing list, and whatever is comfortable for you. I will be sending a lot of announcements on the MEAC ICANN mailing list, so you will get fellowship announcements, ICANN fellowships, ISOC fellowships, IETF fellowships, IGF. If you're really interested in staying tuned with this whole field, I mean, I'm sure you'll find a lot of opportunities. So like today morning, I sent out an email to this group on a master's program by Digital Foundation. So if anybody's interested in this field, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities there. Yes, Susan.
First of all, I want to thank you all, DTR, ICANN, Internet Society, and RIPE. We learned a lot from all faculty members, and I think you did a very good job. Thank you very much. And this governance school, and of course I learned a lot from all participants. Thank you very much, everyone, for your presentations. This internet governance school invoked many opinions in my mind. For example, I want to share with you maybe some opinions to you. The first thing I am planning to do is to offer my bosses that we should, through our website, BTK's website, to advertise the fellowship announcements of ICANN, ISOC, RIPE, and because Turkey's involvement in global internet governance area is not so high, so we have to do something about it, and this may be a first step to do this. And then I heard some applications from presentations. For example, Maria's presentation, there was an application for women, and we have some friends in the Ministry of Family and Women, for example. I'm planning to propose them to fund such an application to protect women in Turkey. For example, this is one plan. Another is, I think it was in Salam's presentation, there was an application for reducing hunger. It was for restaurants, as you might remember, for access food to give access food to poor people. This might be another project for us. And lastly, I discovered that we must have a national idea. We don't have it in Turkey. So in collaboration with DTR, maybe we have to do something about it. And these are just a few thoughts after this IG school. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. So actually, I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I mean, I'd really like to see each and every one of you kind of going back home and doing something for the community. Maybe you can start an ISOC chapter. You can maybe have a national school on internet governance. So you have examples here from Afghanistan, even from Pakistan. Maybe a national IGF like Afghanistan, even Pakistan are working on a national IGF. So there are really many things that you can do. You can also engage with academia and tell them that, yeah, there is this thing called internet governance, there is this organization called we would add another extra point. So Somalia, for example, so you received an extra point for being from a country, even Iraq actually. And then the third point, we gave an extra point to anybody who's doing an academic study in internet governance. So these are 3 extra points that were given for 3 different purposes. So we did consider that. Now, one other thing we also took in mind is that, well, actually, it was me who did that. And I was glad that the program committee accepted it. So I said I'm not going to pick the top 13 or the top 15 or the top 16 or whatever. I picked the highest score from each country. So the highest from Tunisia, the highest from Libya, the highest from Egypt, and so on. And say that again? That's me. And yeah, I mean, we were able to actually, so the school has 13 different nationalities, and we are really proud of it. I mean, you're a first comer from Somalia, so you're the first Somalian to attend the school. You are the first Libyan to attend the school. I mean, we're really happy about that. And we're really looking forward to having more people actually from more nationalities joining us in future schools. Yeah.
Country
That hasn't been here, yeah. So like we have Comoros, for example. We have Djibouti. We have. Yeah, actually, there was a lady who was supposed to come from Morocco, but unfortunately, because she had switched to a new job, she did not. She was unable to accept it. Yeah, but I think, and of course the Gulf countries, so like Oman, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and even Saudi Arabia. So these are countries, they actually don't embrace internet governance and multi-stakeholderism. So for them, I mean, and again, I mean, one issue with the Gulf is this chicken and egg problem, where you have the expats and you have the locals. The locals are seniors. If they receive such an invitation, they will delegate it to the expat. And the expat looks at this says, I mean, I have a day job, I don't care about this stuff, so who cares? So it's more of a dilemma with that. And in fact, our engagement efforts in the GCC is quite shy, actually. Just
Probably what this school needs is like more promotion. Like it's like there's no specific social media engagement. You know that like you don't exist on social media. So how I heard about the school is like I was following another page called Empty Lab in Beirut, and they were promoting this. Yeah, they posted this. So this is the only way I would have ever.
So actually, that's another homework for you. So next year, when we announce that there is this school taking place in country X, and I'm not going to mention what country that is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the person who actually asked the question.
Yeah, definitely. You will find lots of Egyptian.
So and we really, I mean, rely on you to also push the message out. So if you can come across a person who you think is really good, or you have a mailing list or a list of contacts, just push it to people. Tell them that this is. I mean, if you think it's interesting, just tell them this is interesting and why it's interesting. Nadia.
For this awareness thing in this promotion, at the same time, we are in this school Asia Pacific Internet Awareness Academy.
Yeah, it's run by my colleagues.
I just told my couple of students that this is their because they have preference for 18 to 25 years young.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So he applied and he was selected. And my student is also there and
Who was that?
Believe in action.
Yeah, okay. I don't
He's
know.
as a participant. So initially some girl was selected, but she didn't respond. So the second one was him.
Yeah.
So this is what I just told him, and he took it seriously and applied.
Well, that's the way forward. And actually, in Pakistan, you have a school taking place next week in Peshawar.
Yes.
So I mean, that's an opportunity. But of course, I mean, they have selected everybody, and it's already. Maybe you can look at next year. And actually, they are talking with the PK6 steering committee. Actually, I'm on the mailing list.
I'm also going as a speaker.
Yeah, and please, I mean, try to get yourself more engaged there, because today they are talking, well, not today, I mean, but past couple of months they've been talking about not just having this one annual event, but having more activities, especially with academia, and they have a lot of support from the Higher Education Commission in Islamabad. So actually, I'm a good friend. So Professor Ashad, if you know him, he's the one who actually approached me, telling me we want to do this in Pakistan. And he was really flexible. I mean, and we just did it.
And he's currently in higher education.
Yeah, I mean, he's a director general there. Yeah, he was a rector at Islamabad Textile University.
Textile University.
Okay, anything else? Yes, Yusuf.
Yeah, so 3 years ago I attended the
people, internet governance, they think it's e-government or e-governance. So yes, so there was this case actually where, I can't remember where, so it was a school on internet governance and people, I think in Afghanistan, you said people were thinking, so they were thinking that it's an e-governance kind of platform rather than an internet. So that happened. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues actually in this industry. And in fact, I mean, translation to Arabic is, I was told that translation to Arabic is a little bit more clear than in many other languages. Like if you go to Spanish, it's completely messed up. Like, come on.
Yes, I was keeping silent because you proposed for a negative feedback on this, so that's but since everybody is talking Islam, so I have my chance.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank ICANN, Metia, for what to their English, hospitality here. It is a great opportunity to be, developing such a, wonderful education. My presence to this school is to explore how internet governance is in other countries is being, calculated. Because we attempt to establish a national IGF as well. It's a very good idea to start with the internet school, internet governance school before the national IGF. So this is what I have from my team here. So the first step that we would do, I would like to promote this among our community so that we can reach this point. Thank you, Farhad, for making this opportunity available for us and medium people. And I will thank you, of course, once again for very generous, hospitality. One very good comment that if this happens to be again here in Turkey, by chance, make your hosting know about the food or the restaurant. Because it was very, very shocking for us when we went for the first restaurant. I personally thought that we are over. I even went for a walk, and when I came back, I found another place.
Yeah, so that's quite normal in Turkey. You find new places. That was Wednesday's dinner, guys, not the Thursday one. So actually, you were talking about having a sit before the school. So you might actually, so that's what the Tunisians are doing. So they're doing a sit and then they're going to the IGF. So yeah, I mean, that's good thing. So one last comment here, maybe? Okay, two, I'll accept two. Really quick, please.
I just want to thank the Turkish people for their kind hospitality from you, and I would admire that you gave us the chance to give presentations, and especially for me it was kind of motivational and encouraging. Everyone was happy, and from the previous experience I was more active in this school. I appreciate it. Thank you. And I just forgot what I was about to say.
So let Wahid go next, and if you remember, we'll hand over the mic.
All was about being happy, and thank you all.
So I would also like to thank everyone who helped us come to the Ankara. It was my first time as well. Beside this, I would like to put some idea to how can this team be connected with each other for the future. So what we can do is we can start with some small projects working on maybe child online protection, or maybe to find some data, collect some data about our country and make a bigger database or online database about the online penetration and online usage of internet, not only in our countries but in the whole region. And we can put it online. Plus, beside this, I would also like to have anyone who would like to write about their experience. We have a website, afig.if. I would pleasurely publish that on our website. So that was all I I want to say.
Okay, thank you. So actually speaking of that, if anybody decides to write anything and publish it, please share the link on the mailing list. I'll post it actually on the webpage. So this webpage will also remain alive. Whatever you write, whatever you publish, I mean, I'll be happy to just post it on that webpage. So last but not least, I mean, let's conclude everything. A big thank you to Kader, Banu,